there's the Baldwins right next to me and the Doziers on the other side. And my grandmother lived on the second. We lived in seventh in Monroe. It was all Air Force barracks before where my grandmother lived on the second. But this was a new area, and Mother had gotten some money from her father dying, and she put her money into and built this house. I guess she paid cash for it. But it was just a regular, back in the 50s, it was like a little 3-bedroom. I think it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, but the living room and a swinging door into the kitchen in the back, and then a nice little, had a swing set in the background. But when my when my mother was taking care of my sister, I went down, and I remember seeing myself as a child, sleeping. So I must have been 4 or 5, because Brenda's your age, I think. She's 2 years younger in October. And I was born December 26, 51. And I remember seeing myself fall asleep, but I was overhead. And I don't know, I remember looking down. I was on a ship with I call them my ET family, and looked down and saw myself, and they explained it to me. And I was like, how can I be down there and I'm up here? And they said I had to go back. So I didn't know if I was a walk-in, and I'd been asked that by Ruth Montgomery. She said I was from somewhere way up, like a cosmos being way, way out or something. But I believe in Ruth Montgomery. That's how I met J. Allen Hynek. But anyway, I was laying there, and I remember being overhead, and they told me about them. So when about 56, this was probably 55, 56, because by the time Sputnik flew over, I knew all about being in space. And my dad was pointing, and I was trying to say, yeah. And, they were like, what? So they didn't understand. They thought I was a really different child because I spoke very eloquently, and I had an excellent memory. They could ask me anything about what was coming on TV. We only had Channel 8 and Channel 10 from El Dorado, Arkansas, but I could tell them I was coming on things like that at a very early age. But I'll always remember looking and seeing myself, and my mother got scared because I was asleep. I don't know. They must have kept me there a long time because the sun was starting to come down. I remember having to go back. They stayed right overhead like in a cloud. And I don't remember going anywhere. But I remember looking down and having to go back down and not wanting to. And then my mother had called my grandmother, my Aunt Bella, and Uncle Rufus to come look for me. And that's how I came out, was telling that story in 2007 on the UFO Digest. I was so scared. And anytime I'd talk about it, I would get, and I still to this day recently, when we had Jan Harzen on Thursday night, I was shaking, literally couldn't sleep the night before. And I was shaking because something about Jan Harzen makes it real for me. I don't know what it is, MUFON or just the fact that he runs MUFON. But I started shaking again, and it was like having to come back from space and be on the planet. But it was like an anxiety attack or something. But I tried to tell my mother. Anyway, I remember going back down, and then my grandmother and I tried to tell her. I pointed up, I was up there, and she said, "Well, where have you been?" I said, "Your mother's worried about you, and I'm so glad we found you and all that, and you're okay and everything." But then she'd turn around, because she was always real sweet to me. But she was holding my hand and taking me back across. There was little lots. They weren't acreage. They were like lots, probably half-acre lots or so. But anyway, she took me back. But she said, "Don't tell your mother anything about this," because I was up there, and I was, a little kid explaining it to her. She's like, "You don't make any sense. What do you mean you're in the sky? You're in the cloud." Or she's just like, but she didn't believe me. So that was my first experience. But then when I died, remember, in the second grade, I had the orbs. People come pick me up. So that was with hepatitis. So that was my second. Now, these people were up over my bed. Now, that was the second grade. So I must have been visited 4 or 5, and then in the second grade again at 7 or 8, 50. So, okay, so there's Sputnik. So I remember telling my dad about, that's normal. So in my world, child, these beings were real. And I know that they trained me in my room. I have memories. of working with a person that my parents didn't see. Remember when I told you about the person and Mother came and said, well, bring Leo, and she said, I wanted to go in the back seat, and she said she opened the door, and I knew she couldn't see him. She left him on the porch. He stayed on the porch. He wouldn't come with us.
Right.
I don't know why he couldn't leave the room.
Right, your invisible friend.
Yeah, my invisible friend. Wasn't a tall 6 foot.
Don't forget my invisible friend. My husband's making a smoothie. My apologies. I'm sorry. He came back early, so well. So Leo, what did Leo look like? What did Leo look like?
I don't remember. He was small and he was a boy, and he was my best friend, and he taught me things. And I remember he could teach me ESP and how to build with my blocks. And I was learning levitation. I was learning things, how to do numbers and how to do things as a child. So they were extracurricular tools to use my mind. But I do remember that because nobody else could do it, and I could know things. So he was training me because, remember, I'd already been up on a ship. So, and I wanted to know things.
Right.
And I didn't want to be alone. So I was the only child, and Mother was the typical Donna Reed kind of mother with the dresses and the big slips and the hair fixed in a bob. She was quite very happy. She had a home ec in Washita High School, and she was very well trained and looked forward to being a mother. You know, let's see, her mother had her at 23, but she had me at 20. So she was about the 1950s and giving the kids, you know, the perfect life after the World War II, because she was raised real poor during when her Jewish grandpa listened to them killing his relatives in Poland during Hitler time, you know, on the radio in Clark's, Louisiana, because he worked and ran the sawmill there. So she had bad memories of war. So she wanted, when I came along in 1951, actually I grew up with the 52 babies because that was December 26, 1951. So it's just like I just turned 67. But I went to school, you know, with all the kids the next year. So, but let's see. No, I started early. I started at 5 because I started 5 to 6. The reason was I remember over and over asking why I had to go to school. I wanted to go to school really bad. Mother had to go talk to them, and they said it was up to her and me because my birthday was before the end of the year. So she got me in with everybody a year older than me. So I had to adjust. I was always the youngest kid, you know, being born December 26. So I must have been with everybody that was born in 50. You know what I mean? Everybody was like 6 months older, 1 month older or something. So anyway, but I was 5 in the 5 to 6 in the first, and then 6 to 7 in the second, and 7 to 8 in the third, 8 to 9 in the fourth. And that's when I went to Roswell, New Mexico, and White Sands, New Mexico. And I was already tall, but I had already died with hepatitis. So my first out-of-body near-death experience in the second grade. So we got to get that in because,
let's slow this down a little bit. We're going too fast. We're going down time, so we're 8 years old. Let's go back a little bit, get a little bit more from when we were younger. So how old were you when you had that invisible friend?
Before from the time I could probably 2 till I remember him entertaining me before Brenda ever came. So he was my friend until I went on the ship, and I don't remember him after I went on the ship. Isn't that interesting?
Okay.
I never thought about
so give us a time frame. So you went on the ship at what age?
That would be, Brenda was 2. I think it's 2.5 years. I think I'm 2.5 years old. She was born on October 13th or October 21st. She was born October 54, I think, because 2 and 3.
Yeah, I was born February 54. So she's...
I think she was born October 54 or 55. anyway, I had a sister, and then 11 months later, I had a brother. So they were 55, 56, maybe 54 and 55, or 55 and 56. But anyway, she was in diapers and a baby when I did this. And to me, it seemed like it wasn't cold and it wasn't hot. It seems like to me it was spring, like maybe May. So I don't know. I do know that he.
Yeah,
I remember the house.
We don't really know years. So that was.
No.
So when you went to White Sands, let's go to the. So let me see. So you're in
52nd grade.
And that was what year? Second grade would have been.
Let's see, 5 to 6. I started at Plum Street Elementary, and then we moved. No, they were going to build another new house because she had me and my sister and my brother. So second grade, I was going to Mitchell in West Monroe and stayed with my aunt. Mother was working at Owen Matheson, and so was my dad in West Monroe at the paper mill. My grandmother was the PBX operator for Mr. Brown, and then Mr. Brown sold the paper mill to Owen Matheson, and they had a box company, and they had the paper. My dad would run the machines in the big, gigantic building for paper mill. So, let's see, at Mitchell second. So 5 and 6 school first, Mitchell Elementary 6 to 7. Then I went to Ransom Elementary 3rd to 4th. With principal was Walters, and Miss Townsend was the library, and Miss Bridges was my 3rd grade teacher. So 3rd grade, and then in the summer of the 3rd, after I had hepatitis at Mitchell in the 2nd, and they had to bring me my homework. That's when I died and saw the angels in my room, or ETs, whatever you want to call them, and they told me I'd be okay. So that's when the Catholic Church was like, whoa, she's seeing angels. That was in the 2nd grade. So after I got better, they told me I'd get better in 11 months. That's when I decided to go to Roswell, because I was already trained with extracurricular activities by my invisible friend, and I've been on a spacecraft. Then I died and came out of my body. I had my first out-of-body experience and saw angels in the 2nd grade. By the 3rd grade, I had to get better that year. So the next summer, I could get my grandmother and my aunt and uncle, Aunt Phil and Uncle Rufus, to take me to White Sands, Mexico, to see my family again, my ET family.
Your ET family. Now, how did that come about? And then we should go back, and I'll tell about when I was on board ship and a couple things here. But how did that come about? So you said, I want to go to White Sands, right? You just
said, I told them.
It was all because of you.
They didn't understand. There was a lot of adult questioning, but because I'd been so sick and Mother had a baby, and we moved out to the 115 Diane Street. There was a red brick home. It was a real pretty home, and they started building other houses in the Haynes subdivision. It used to be New Natchitoches subdivision, but Mr. E.B. Haynes built that subdivision, and the water company Nichols lived there. Troy Nichols, Tommy Nichols, and Johnny Nichols' daddy, and they all went to school with me. And I remember my teacher later on hurting my feelings because, I had little brothers and sisters, but she didn't think, Mother always dressed me with really nice clothes, but she didn't think I lived in the same neighborhood with them. So she thought, I don't know, she just acted like I was poor and they weren't. And I was like, Mother, I've dressed nice. Mother made most of my clothes. I don't know, but anyway, she just feelings. But anyway, so that was when we went. I told my grandmother, and my grandmother told my aunt and uncle, and my uncle had an uncle out there that lived on the Indian reservation, and they decided they'd take me. And I don't know, I just said I willed it to happen. But I knew I had to go there. But I don't understand how a person, I observe it from my inner self, but and I observe as an investigator, growing up as the trade of being an investigator, but I really find it odd in my story that the truth is stranger than fiction, because how did a child living in Louisiana will her family to take her to White Sands, New Mexico? And then I find out my uncle works at Alamogordo.
Well, let's look at that. Okay, that's a good question. So let's not go past that too quick. What I'm finding is a lot of these people are in